You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.
Good evening, and welcome to another edition to The Voice of Reason. My name is Ted Durden. I'm a Southern Democrat.
And my name is Mark Reed, a West Coast Republican.
And together we are The Voice of Reason. For those of you tuning in for the very first time, this is a politically motivated podcast where civil discourse is the order of the day. Where Mark and I believe there are more things that unite us than there are that divide us. This evening we have no guests, and Mark started something last week that I'm really going to enjoy. Well, we each begin the show with a monologue. Last week, Mark regaled us with his monologue. This week, it is my turn. As I said from the onset, this show is about civil discourse. Mark and I agree on more things than we disagree. And when we do disagree, it is done civilly. It is done respectfully. And that is what my monologue is about this evening. George Washington, when he was 13 years old, he wrote down 110 rules of civility. It actually came from a French manuscript from 1595. Now, the majority of those rules, they're rather mundane as far as how you should posture yourself and as far as when you're dining and how you're interacting with company and with guests. But in this rather politically charged climate that we have nowadays, and especially with the impeachment that has occurred, I think there are some of the rules that he wrote that I think are certainly relevant today, and I'm just going to read a few of them.
Not 110.
Of course not. Now, just a precious few. Show not yourself glad at the misfortune of another, though he were your enemy. Now, that was on display when the first article of impeachment was passed, and much to Nancy Pelosi's chagrin, there was clapping and a little cheering, very briefly. But again, it exemplified the political rancor and the disagreement. Because the one thing that I would agree with what Republicans have said is that this impeachment process has been weaponized. I would have rather let this play out in the courts where the witnesses would have come to testify had the Supreme Court, which I'm sure would have ended up at, found that they should testify before Congress. The next one is mock not, nor jest at anything of importance. Break no jests that are sharp and biting, and if you deliver anything witty and pleasant, abstain from laughing thereat yourself. Associate yourself with men of good quality, if you esteem your own reputation, for 'tis better to be alone than in bad company. Let your conversation be without malice or envy, for 'tis a sign of tractable and commendable nature, and in all causes of passion admit reason to govern. Speak not injurious words, neither in jest nor earnest. Scoff at no one, although they give occasion. Those are some of the basic rules of civility that George Washington wrote when he was 13 years old.
13?
13.
Wow.
13. And it is something that I believe, again, in this politically charged atmosphere, that we need to get back to. I miss the days of Ronald Reagan. I miss the days of Papa Bush, even Baby Bush. Even there were those periods when Clinton was in office where there was civility in the House, in the Senate, and with the White House. Nowadays, that seems to have completely evaporated. And trust me, American society is tired of it. Let's get back to being civil. Let's have respectful disagreements without all of the partisanship. I'm tired of it, and I'm sure you are too. That's my monologue for this week.
You know, Ted, it's refreshing to hear a Democrat actually speak with civility, some intelligence, and thoughtfulness of difference of thought. And that's why I've always said it a couple times on this show, that I'm really grateful to have a few friends that are Democrats. I'm very grateful to have you as a friend as a Democrat. Otherwise, I might grow to hate them. Because watching what's going on in television with the Democrat leadership, mind you, and this is where I think where civility is breaking down within society, is that I really have practiced separating Democrats, which is a member of the Democratic Party. I had to look it up when I said it wasn't Democratic. You know, it's the Democratic Party, and has been the Democratic Party, even though they don't practice, democratic philosophies for quite a while.
Not like the way they used to.
Not the way they used to, and they really, basically shut out Bernie Sanders,
right?
Choosing their candidate. That wasn't a democratic process. That was a dictatorial process.
Yes.
And so they've really gone the wrong way. But I've struggled very hard to separate the members of a party from the actual party. And this is how I've done it. I've asked people, and I'll ask you, when's the last time you've read the Democratic platform of the Democrat Party?
I haven't, because...
Have you ever read it?
Honestly. About 12 years ago.
About 12 years
about
ago.
12 years ago, yeah.
So they redo them, every 4 years.
Right.
So
it all depends on who's going to be running, what they feel are going to be the issues that will most appeal to the American public.
What do you think the percentage of Democrats that are registered Democrats is that have read the platform?
Probably less than 1%.
And that goes with my party too, the Republican. Because I'll ask people, I'll ask them both the same question.
Right.
When's the last time you read the national platform? If they're a Democrat, when's the last time you've read the national platform? And when's the last time you've read the state platform of the? Because they are
absolutely.
different. They are
absolutely.
different. Okay?
Absolutely.
And I'll ask that of both Democrats and Republicans, and about 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So realistically, the electorate, the voters, they're going in and voting for a party. They have no clue what they're voting for.
No,
they really don't.
No, what I find is a lot of them, and I think this goes across the board, regardless of your party affiliation, they go for sound bites. That's what they go for. Whatever there's the hot topic of the day, what might be the hot button of the day, that's what they seem to glom onto and cling on to, and it seems to really truly shape their opinion and how they're going to vote without getting into really what the policy is, with the underpinnings. Yes. They don't.
What do you think it is? Because we have discussed on several shows the different wedge issues, and do you think that realistically people have fallen into the trap of, what am I going to get out of this if I vote for this person? What am I personally going to get? Rather than what is the nation going to get if we elect this person?
No, and I agree with you 100%. There was it was the magazine that was started by Billy Graham. And I was really surprised. I read the article that they came out and they indicated that Trump should be removed from office, which was surprising. But this gentleman, he's about to retire. What they did point out is, and it's been spoken about in various documentaries and on television, that it seems like the evangelicals, as forgiving as they are, seem to overlook a lot of Trump's behavior because he is accomplishing what their goals that they're looking to achieve. I remember reading an article that they're not happy with his usage of taking the Lord's name in vain, and we both know what that word is, with some of his behavior, but they've compromised that because he's accomplishing what they want to do as far as anti-abortion laws are concerned. So they're compromising in that sense. And I think, like you just said, they're focused on the wedge issues because they have their own goal that they want to see achieved, regardless of what the cost may be in the end. And the Democrats are guilty of the exact same thing.
Right.
I mean, this whole thing that you and I have talked about too many times with raising the minimum wage, not giving any consideration to how that will totally eviscerate and obliterate minority employment, it will go through the roof. They don't think about that. I watched them, the Obama administration, were and again, shoot me, kill me, whatever you want to do, with the LGBTQ plus and Hispanics, their rights expanded just exponentially under his administration, while other groups were ignored.
It's something you brought that back up again. Something I was debating back and forth with my consultant on my way here.
Okay.
As he sent me a phrase, and because we're going to do a full-on show on this, on the minimum wage aspect. But
Okay, that's fine. I'm ready for that.
Yeah. Oh, so am I. But the statement that he wanted to read is just simple, one sentence, and that is: the U.S. of A. is effectively racist by design. Congress has created institutionalized racism, with Senator Sanders being the current leading proponent of this institutionalized racism. We're going to get into that subject quite heavily, because remember, Bernie Sanders isn't a registered Democrat. He's a registered independent.
He was,
He joined the Democrat Party in order to be on the Democrat ticket.
Right.
That's why they shunned him, basically, the DNC did. And so in some of our guests, I'm going to get their opinions on this as well when we come up, because we have a heck of a lineup in January.
Yeah, that we do.
We
Guys,
really
got to stay
do.
tuned for that. Yeah,
But
January's going to be a powerhouse month.
it's going to start off with one heck of a powerhouse guest, and we'll reveal our guest to the 3/4 mark of this show.
Right.
But when we're talking about civility, it's really, I'm watching a lot of the Facebook posts and stuff. The people, and even Talib came out. She was walking. She did a selfie, video of herself. I forget what you call that, but she was doing that, happy and gleefully on her way to the House floor to vote to impeach the president. And it's like, there's so much acting going on both sides. The one side, up and tyrannical about this and what's happening. The other one, this is a solemn moment. We really don't take glee in it. It's such a crock. I've seen better actors with B-list actors.
Well, I agree with this. It's bad on both sides. I had to kind of chuckle when the Republican counterparts, they analogized what was going on with Donald Trump to Pontius Pilate and Jesus being able to face his accusers, with what happened on Pearl Harbor, a day that will go down in infamy.
You watched more of it than I couldn't watch it.
Well,
Ted.
no, it was
to be honest with you, I enjoyed some time off with my grandchildren and my wife. I actually went to a new friend that I'm developing a friendship with, Chuck, and Katie is his wife. They listened to the show, and so we went and had breakfast with them, and phenomenal people. I really enjoyed the breakfast with them, and we got into a lot of discussion. They're from Chicago. Okay, they're Republicans from Chicago, believe it or not. I didn't know they existed.
And not in Chicago.
Yeah, I asked them where their bulletproof vests were.
Okay, really? Tom Daley must not have known about them, right?
Exactly. But we got into a lot of very interesting conversations, and he's really a good guy. I really like him. But we were sitting there and we were talking about the Jehovah's Witnesses showing up, right, and how they know the neighborhoods, they know everything that's going on. But he goes, but they don't vote. I said, well, wait a minute, Christians don't vote either. And he goes, what? I said, no. I said 50% of the Christians are not registered to vote, and only 50% of them turn out to vote. And he goes, what's about 28%? It's in some pockets it's 28%, but on a national average it's about 25%. So you look at it and you say, why? Why aren't they voting? And I've heard this from churchgoers, from the Christian churches. They say, well, we do not want to put politics above God. Right?
Right.
However, you look at it and you say, wait a minute. You believe in the 10 Commandments, right? Do you believe in voting in a person that would break every one of those commandments? Like you said, the self-interest.
Right, exactly, right.
Would you vote for somebody who would break every one of those commandments? And they were like, well, and they don't think about that. And it's like, hold on a minute. You want to go out there and complain about all the ills.
Right.
Remember I still remember this very good, but do you remember this when Michael Reagan was on the show? He was one of our first guests.
Right.
And he said that he was going into a speaking engagement, and the pastor was introducing him. And the pastor was going on about how The ills of society are because there's no longer prayer in school.
In schools, right.
And so he was thinking about it, and he got up to speak. He was very eloquently introduced, and he got up there, and he went off of his normal speech. And he said, well, thank you for the lovely introduction and stuff. And how many of you here have school-age children? He said about a quarter of the audience raised their hands, about 100 people. And then he said, how many of you prayed with your children before you went to school? And all their hands went down. The ills of society come from inside the home.
Of course they do.
The dismay, the uncivility within the homes, the arguments. How do you treat one another in the home? And part of the conversation I had with Chuck was, going back to what is the original definition of conservative? You say you're conservative Democrat, right? A Baptist conservative, fire-breathing Baptist,
absolutely. Right?
Fire and brimstone, right?
Yeah.
And it's because we know unequivocally that conservative means one thing. There's a natural order to things.
Yeah.
There's a natural way to do things. There's a right way to do things.
Right.
It's not a Republican way. It's not a Democrat way. There's a right way to do things. Conversation between two individuals with opposing political viewpoints with civility is the right way to have conversation.
Absolutely.
Because we were engaging in the control room over here before the show.
I
got it going. And we can stand up on our hindquarters and beat one particular point, but we're forgetting all the rest of the quills on the porcupine.
Right.
And until we have enough respect for one another to understand there's a whole new set of quills on that porcupine we need to discuss before we take that one and try to kill him.
Right. And it's kind of interesting because in today's climate, it's almost like people really have forgotten what civility means. It's like they think that civility is tolerance. That's not civility. Tolerance is tolerance. Civility is what you and I demonstrate on this show. Having a civil conversation, having civil disagreements, listening to what the other person has to say, and either agree with it, confirm it, or refute it, but you do it in a sane manner, no yelling,
respectful
in
manner.
in a respectful way, right?
Manner.
Exactly. Without it deteriorating into name calling and yelling and all of this. I mean, that is the classic Webster's definition of civility. That's what it is, and that is what is lacking. And you're right. It begins at home.
It begins at home.
When
the civility of the children amongst each other, the civility of the children with the parents, with authority.
Right.
With authority.
And if there's a disagreement, how to resolve it amicably, how to resolve it respectfully, without drawing blood, without anybody getting their feelings hurt, or as the kids say nowadays, getting their face smashed. That's what it's about. It's about peaceful resolution, respectful resolution.
And on that note, we're going to go ahead and pay our bills. Jack?
The Voice of Reason is brought to you by Levin and Nalbandian Trial Lawyers at 213-232-4848. If you have any workers' compensation, employment, and labor law or personal injury legal needs, call Levin and Nalbandian Trial Lawyers at 213-232-4848. And now back to the Voice of Reason.
Welcome back to the Voice of Reason. We're kind of doing a light-hearted show because it's in 1 week from now it's Christmas.
Right.
And quite honestly, I'm even though this is a political podcast, I'm kind of fed up with the politics we're watching on TV. And it's like it takes everything to not get upset. And as I was mentioning, I didn't watch, the impeachment vote because it was a foregone conclusion.
Right.
I honestly felt that Kevin McCarthy, my opinion, should have just told all the Republicans, go up there and give your speech. Because that's all it was a whole marketing tool for every one of the congressmen to go back to their districts and say, you see what I said?
Wow.
I mean, my opponent, as soon as he got done, it was on YouTube, it was up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was up and going. And it was like, it's disgusting. Something that is so really serious.
It is. It is.
to this country and the fabric. The only, national election we have is for the presidency of the United States. Impeachment should only be considered with real bribery, treason, high crimes, and misdemeanors, ones that really are breaking the law. Granted be, and I've said this on the show on occasions, there's things that, he did it again the other day when he talked about Dingell's, John Dingell, and it's like, why in the hell do you do this?
Even Lindsey Graham came out and commented and got on him about that.
It gets to me, it gets to me sometimes because you want to have, in any president, whether it's Obama, whether it's Bill Clinton, whether it's George Bush, whether it's George Bush Sr., whether it's President Trump, you want to get behind them for success,
right?
Because their success is the success of this country.
Absolutely.
That's it. And that's all we should all care about is the success of this great nation. And so it's really hard when that comes out. You just sit back, you're like, please, you basically validate all of your haters when you come out with something like that.
But it's kind of like what we've talked about.
But no, wait. It's kind of like a husband saying, "Well, I only cheated on you once."
One time.
It's like, come on, honey.
It doesn't matter that it lasted for 5 years. It was just one time.
In 30 years, I only cheated on you once. It's like, give me a break. So it's really difficult. But I kind of wanted to shift a little bit in here, a little bit of a transit, because I didn't drink enough or have enough Maydol to deal with this impeachment process right now, because it's not over. The games aren't over.
No.
And I want to go into Christmas. We're not going to do a show on the 26th.
No, we're not.
Out of respect to each other, out of respect to our listeners, because it is Christmas. We know the gamesmanship isn't going to stop.
No.
Not with the leadership in the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. So we're just going to let them play.
Right.
And we're going to come back January 2nd, and we have a hell of a show lined up on the 2nd, and we have great shows lined up after that. But kind of on that note, in getting into this endeavor of putting this show on, I first have to thank, Steve Appel, for dragging me kicking and screaming into becoming a show host, broadcaster in a sense, because I never really wanted to do this. It was fun. It was kind of a concept that came about. I met you in the Uncle studio when I was a regular contributor to his show, and I said, Ted is a pretty cool dude. I like him. He's a thoughtful, respectful individual. He's articulate. He's intelligent. Too bad he's a Democrat, but
nobody's perfect. Right?
But I thought, wow, this is a great concept. And my first proposal was I wanted you to do town halls with me, to get that perspective, because I sincerely believe that we need the civility back in the halls of our legislators.
We do.
In the presidency, once again, we need to get back to that old school Republican and Democrat.
Right.
And even Chuck's wife, from Chicago, she's like, I really like listening to Ted. He's an old school Democrat. I want to hear more from him. And I was like, oh, so you want me to shut up? But this is what needs to happen. We need to start teaching the next generation how to listen to understand, and not how to listen to reply.
Right.
Okay. What were your first thoughts in the beginning of this endeavor? This is the truth.
Well, no. Hey, look. Just to give a little background, like you said, when I first started The Voice of Reason, it was something fun to do. There was a mixture of politics, sports, relationship advice, and recipes, which was my favorite part.
Yeah, and then you have defunct relationships, you can't cook.
Hey, watch out now.
I'm harassing him now.
But then you and I did a show, Work Comp Matters. Like I said, that was Steve Appel's show.
Right.
And I was impressed with you. And then when you proposed us doing a show together, I'll be honest with you, I never thought it would happen. I'm just keeping it a buck. I'm just keeping it real. I just think that it would. And then when you and I started doing this show together, we just clicked.
Yeah.
And we fed off each other really well. Always respectful of each other.
Right.
A real nice exchange of ideas
Yes.
and beliefs. And it just took off, and I enjoy it.
Yes.
You know, more so than I thought that I would. I mean, I think you're more of a political creature than I am.
Right.
I'm politically insightful, and so we're a good match in that sense.
Right.
We really and truly are. We both bring a lot to the table, and from what we both heard, I know our audience enjoys it a whole lot.
Right.
And I have a lot of respect for you. I have a lot of admiration. I have a lot of admiration for you. I was actually thrilled to death when you invited me to that Republican town hall meeting. I didn't know if I was going to get shot, stabbed, tarred, and feathered. I had no idea. I felt like, okay, I'm walking up here into the lion's den. I don't know what the hell's going to happen. But you know what? Anything go down, I'm throwing Mark in front of me. He's going to be my human shield. But things went really, really well.
Right.
I was very, very well received. And I look forward to doing more with you. I do.
I
do.
As I do. I'm
you're
looking
a great
for the
guy.
new.
You're a great guy, Mark.
Thank you.
You really
very
are.
much.
You're a great guy.
I appreciate that, Ted. I really do. I think there's a great friendship that's building here, and I think that more people need to take this example and reach out to their neighbors and to their friends and realize that Democrats within the Democrat Party are not your enemy.
No.
Quite possibly the Democrat leadership is, but quite possibly so is the Republican leadership.
Right.
You look at the Republican leadership and the Democrat leadership in the state of California, I think all of us can agree, whether you're a Republican member or a Democrat member, California is really kind of going off the deep end.
Oh, it is. Man.
There's
It
no
really
question. I mean, I had the opportunity to be in Texas the other day, and I was kind of told by a couple of people, don't even mention you're from California. So I actually, when I was helping out a friend running for Congress out there, Casey Gray in the 11th Congressional District, and I had to. I was being his chief of staff for the day, and I introduced myself. Hi, I'm Mark Reed. I'm chief of staff of Casey Gray. I'm from Austin, Texas, because my family's from Austin.
Oh, okay.
Right?
All
So
right.
I have family members there, and because he said, don't say you're from California. You're gonna get tarred. You're going to be dragged out to the oil fields and you're going to get lost. So, but it was really funny because people, you know, they were very impressed when they met me, and they asked him later when I left. They said, "Well, where's that Mark Reed from Austin?" Casey was like, "Who?"
Oh, he went back to California.
Exactly, he flew back to California. What? You know, but it's kind of like realizing there are some people that think in California as well, because most people in other states really look at California as, what is wrong with you?
Oh yeah, soup and nuts. That's how they see us. They see us as crazy and just off the rails over here.
So, what is one of your favorite shows so far that we've done?
Oh wow.
Because I want to go over a couple of our archive shows to kind of encourage all of you out there to look at our archives and look at some of the shows that you've missed, because we've had some phenomenal guests on the show.
We're really and truly. I got to tell you, I think one of my favorite, hands down, shows was when Michael Reagan was on the show. I love that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really, really, really good show.
Yes.
He was an outstanding guest. He was very personable. Extremely articulate.
Yep.
He was unabashedly honest. That's probably one of my absolute favorite shows.
That was in July.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Michael's been a friend of mine for 15 years now, and great guy, great father,
Oh, yeah.
great husband, great mentor. He's taken the slings and arrows from his own party and from the other party.
Right.
And very similar to when we had Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on.
Yeah, I hate that I missed that show.
He came on and he gave a great history lesson in the first 20 minutes of the show. I mean, it was phenomenal. I had a lot of people contact me on that one and said, wow, that was incredible. To hear that John F. Kennedy, his uncle, had the same battles with the intel community was unbelievable to me. I mean, there was serious battles going on between the White House and the intel community because they didn't see eye to eye. This is the real checks and balances that we have. The White House isn't subservient to the Congress, the lower house,
Right.
even though the lower house has oversight abilities to
Right.
make sure and keep them in check.
Mm-hmm.
But yet this is where executive privilege comes into play, where if they have any kind of a conflict and they issue a subpoena, this is why part of this impeachment process I completely disagree with, and that is obstruction of Congress, right? Is because Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff did not go through the court process. And
Right.
Trey Gowdy said it very eloquently. He said, look, when we did the investigation on Fast and Furious and we did the investigation on Benghazi, it took them 2.5 years to get information because they had to go through the court process.
Right.
The White House, the Obama administration, refused to give up. Eric Holder refused to give up information. They had to. And in fact, even in this administration going after certain information, Tom Fitton with judicial justice gets information faster than Congress does
Which is
because
crazy.
of the Freedom of Information Act.
Right.
And so it's crazy, but that's how our government is set. People don't understand that if things went fast through the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the presidency, if they went fast, we would have a dictatorship.
And the errors would be made, and that's what he
Well, extreme errors would be made. This is why things are supposed to go slow.
Right. Even when the IG came out with the report about the flaws in the FISA system.
Yes.
So that too. And the thing is, and I agree with you, the article of impeachment about obstruction of Congress, to me, was a farce. And this is the reason why I say that. And it's tagging on what you just said.
Right.
The obstruction of Congress is based on the fact that the White House refused to comply with their subpoenas.
Right.
Well, that article could have been dealt with. It might have taken a long time, but if it had wound through the courts, that wouldn't have been an issue. So they had two choices. The Democrats in charge of the House. They could have waited until all the court challenges were done, or they could have proceeded and create this article of impeachment, which is obstruction of Congress. They chose to create an article of impeachment with obstruction of Congress. And that was avoidable. So they chose the fast track. And Adam Schiff even said that. Well, we decided to do this rather than to prolong it. Why not? Why not prolong it? Let it go to its inevitable conclusion. And who knows? You might have garnered more Republican support had these other witnesses been compelled to testify, had the White House been compelled to produce these documents. Why not go that way and do it the right way? You can either do it fast or you can do it right. Well, they chose to do it fast, and this is what we have. So I don't agree with what they did. And I've said this all along. He's not going to be removed by Senate. It was all, in my opinion, has been a horribly distracting political show rather than let this man get back to the business of running this country. Because there are a lot of things that need to be done. And all this has been is one complete giant distraction.
I love hearing that from a Democrat. On that note, we're going to go ahead and pay our bills. Sam, if you can play the ads, please. Thank you. Hi, I want to welcome Rusty Levin and Harry Nabanian, both trial lawyers for workman comp cases. If you're injured on the job, don't hesitate. Contact an attorney. I did when I was wounded or injured on my job, and I thought I would trust my employer, and it didn't work out quite well. So I found Rusty Levin, handled my case like a professional, worked out way better than any other lawyer that I talked to would have worked out. So Rusty, tell us a little bit about your company of Levin and Nabanian Trial Lawyers.
So at our firm at Levin Albania Trial Lawyers, we handle all matters of workers' compensation, personal injury, and employment disputes, wrongful termination matters, and things like that. We were able to help Mr. Reed out with his workers' compensation case. Unfortunately, workers' compensation injury can be very stressful. intense situation. And at Levin Albanian, we try to get you the most benefit we can of the law, while also easing the stress and anxiety that comes along with that situation and getting you back on your feet. My partner, Mr. Albanian, he handles the personal injury sides, and I'll let him take it from there.
And just like all injured employees out there, anybody else who gets injured as a result of somebody else's negligence has rights, and the rights that they need to protect immediately. And they should do that by calling Levin and Albanian trial lawyers and letting us help ease that tension off of you and get you the result you deserve, while also making sure that you get better in the progress. So we're here for you, folks.
Levin and Albanian Trial Lawyers is the best company for you to get a hold of when you're injured or have a personal injury. So give them a call at
213-232-4848, 213-232-4848. Thank you.
and let them handle the stress for you while you recover at home. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Hi, my name is Ted Durden, and I want to take a moment to talk to you about trust, and I trust churchandlaw.com. When it comes to workers' compensation and employment law, you can trust churchandlaw.com. If you ever need legal advice you can rely on, it's churchandlaw.com. Black and white, no gray, churchandlaw.com. 818-230-3110, churchandlaw.com. A law firm you can trust and count on.
Welcome back to the Voice of Reason, and we're doing kind of a interesting, quiet, civil show for the sake of Christmas. And I just, wanted to go over a couple of the other shows that we've done. We have exposed some very important, topics out there. The Aliso Canyon was one. The health experts that have come onto the show, the Dr. Nordella that came onto the show, things that are happening in the Valley. Something that just came up today, actually, and it really French fried my shorts, is my opponent, Sherman. He allowed Omar, Congresswoman Omar, to have a fundraiser in his district for the Muslim Brotherhood and the CARE. And the keynote speaker was the president out of Florida for CARE. And he was silent on the anti-Semitic remarks that are coming out. We're going to have a full-blown show on anti-Semitism and hatred.
Okay.
I want to arrange
I'm
that
down
with
for that.
some. I want to arrange for a couple of rabbis that I know that are supportive of me to come onto the show as well and talk about it. But he was silent when the anti-Semitic conversations were coming out of the House of Representatives from Omar and Tlaib and just the rest of them. It bothers me. I did my DNA and I'm 3% Jewish, as I found out. So it's like, but I've always had a great affinity for the Jewish community.
Right.
But he was silent on all of this, and the truth of it is when we had the Consul General of Israel on the show, I looked at one of his reports, and it talked about the uptick of anti-Semitic, hate crimes in America.
Oh, yeah.
And throughout the world.
Yeah.
And it comes from being silent. Silence is consent. It's the
Absolutely.
old subject matter.
Oh, yeah.
So my opponent has been extremely silent on these things until after the fact. After the fact, he makes a comment. So, there's been 4, vandalisms that have taken place in the temples and the synagogues throughout his district, or just outside of his district. Just recently, Temple Nessa over here in Beverly Hills was vandalized. And he comes out, oh, this is terrible, and I praise the police department for what they've done. It's like, well, wait a minute. You've thrown gasoline on the fire. You've said nothing. You didn't chastise or even want to censure your fellow progressive Democrats for the anti-Semitic slurs that they were coming out with. You actually chastised President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu because it was to your progressive advantage to do so. When Tlaib wanted to go to Palestine, right, which was, it's Israel. But she put on her agenda, she wanted to go to Palestine to organize the BDS movement. Now, the BDS movement has been ordained as an anti-Semitic movement.
Right.
And it is.
Right.
Okay, you're watching it on the colleges throughout California, throughout the United States. it has been deemed an anti-Semitic organization. This is a movement that is anti-Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So when he does these things, then he puts a very disingenuous, Facebook post and a tweet out there. It rots my gut. It's like, how do you do that? But I've always known this, that in a lot of communities, your worst advocate is one of your own on many occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Even on this festive holiday of Christmas, even Jesus Christ had one in the 12 apostles.
Yeah, he sure did, didn't
Judas,
he? Judas, right?
Got the coins, turned them in, right?
Right, yeah.
And so you watch it in this district, and you see things that are going on. And I honestly believe all of our elected officials through these holidays, regardless of which they celebrate, need to really sit back and take stock about what they're doing to this great nation and what they're doing to the civility of the communities and in the homes. And really pray on it, meditate on it, think about it, have a drink on it, whatever they got to do about it. But they really need to start thinking about the tearing apart of this great nation by their examples in this impeachment process.
Yeah, well, that's a great sentiment, Mark. I think it really and truly is. But the cold reality of it is this, and then we've talked about it too many times on the show. The first thing that you'd have to do is drain out their hunger for political power, because that's where it all stems from. They are so blinded, and Sherman is no different. He's probably the worst of all. He's no different. He does all these things for political power, for political gain. And anybody who sits back quietly and does nothing when anti-Semitic remarks are made, when you have synagogues that are vandalized, when there's been an uptick in hate crimes against the Jewish community, and he does nothing, he comes out and gives a 30-second sound bite, then he becomes a ghost. He disappears. You don't see or hear from him again until the next incident.
Yeah, the next incident or the next election.
Right, and that's what I mean.
And you watch political animals like himself,
mm-hmm.
Come out. And I had somebody, I was at an event, I've been at events every day, but I was at an event about a week ago in Simi Valley, and a guy came up to me, he goes, Mark, he goes, you used to talk about the homelessness stuff quite heavily 2 elections ago, so it'd be 6 years ago, and then 4 years ago, and then 2 years ago. And he goes, quite honestly, everybody's like, what the hell are you talking about? They didn't understand it, but I was talking seriously about the policies that were going to create the explosion that we're experiencing today. And we've done some episodes on this.
And
they're in the archives as well. And he just came up to me and goes, Mark, you were so far ahead of the curve on this. And I said, because I look at policies. I'm not looking at emotions.
Right.
What are the policies, and how are the policies going to influence
mm-hmm.
the actions and directions of the community? Are they going to help and prosper, or are they going to suppress and destroy?
Right.
The policies that are being implemented now are very destructive, especially in the homeless, especially there. Because you look at it, is it humane? The Supreme Court came out just recently and talked about that and said, well, they have a right to camp out on the street. It's like, are you kidding me?
Look,
it's inhumane.
It is, and it's unfortunate that as a society, and I'm just going to say it, we consider to be the homeless to be outcasts. We consider them to be the dregs of society. We consider them to be less than human. Which is a tragedy and a travesty in of
Ted,
itself.
you know this. It wasn't always that way.
Oh no, I know.
We're both of an age bracket where, if we saw somebody when we were younger in our teenage years,
mm-hmm.
right? And you remember when the Good Samaritan law came in, it had to pass a Good Samaritan law that it was okay to see if somebody was okay without getting sued.
I know that.
Right?
I remember that. Yeah,
but,
remember that.
If you saw somebody laying down on the sidewalk, you walked up, hey,
are you okay?
Are you okay?
Right,
Can I help you?
Yeah.
Do you need something? Do you want me to call somebody? Right?
Yeah.
But now, because of all of the laws that are there, and the fact that they can they'll actually attack you. I mean, there was a hatchet attack of a Christian guy who bought a homeless guy that was known by the police department as being violent, bought his sandwich he was trying to steal and a Coke he was trying to steal out of 7-Eleven. They got in an argument in there. The homeless guy waited for him outside of the 7-Eleven. When the Christian guy came out from doing this good deed, the homeless guy chopped him up with a hatchet. The guy was deformed for life. He survived it, but he was deformed. Then you have the other guy, the father that was sitting at a restaurant over here in Ventura, with his wife and his kid, and a homeless guy came in there after some kind of an altercation outside and stabbed him in the neck with a screwdriver and killed him. It's inhumane to me when you look at public policy. They're setting this up. What's going to happen when we have a massive outbreak of a disease where it affects everybody? What's going to happen?
It's going to spread like wildfire because of the fact that once it hits the homeless population who don't have the medical care that they need, it's going to spread like wildfire. It's
going to, and it's spreading with the rats and everything else.
Absolutely.
Which kind of leads me into one of our guests that we're going to have. We're going to be doing, for the first time, we're going to be doing a location interview of a person. Her name is Rosemary Gibson. I'm going to read just a little bit of her bio. Okay, and she is the leading expert in this. If this thing would just stop fighting with me here. She is the leading expert. Rosemary Gibson is senior advisor to the Healing Center, author of China RX, exposes the risk of America's dependence on China for medicine. That's all I'm going to give. This is a major teaser. She lives in Virginia. She's a Washington, D.C. expert. Sam, can you put the cover of her book up, please, of China RX? If you want to purchase this book, this is what we'll be talking about. And it is something that is overlooked right now in Congress, and that is over 80% or 90 up to 90% of all of our generic drugs are manufactured in China.
Right.
America doesn't produce any penicillin. They're finding tainted medications all over America. They found rocket fuel inside of the heart medications for seniors with high blood pressure. This is a national security issue, and you wonder why the prices, if China's pissed off at America, let's just raise the prices up. Here it goes. If we're incapable of producing our vaccines, which Robert Kennedy talked about, and there's no liability to the manufacturers, China, right? If we are completely subservient to China for all of our medication, do you think that this might be a little bit of a national security issue?
Oh, absolutely. And what's even scarier, there are parts of the book that also talk about, even if we as a country, if we go after a Chinese manufacturer for drugs, we can be sued, go before a tribunal, and be made to pay them for any profits they would lose, almost ad infinitum, when they're the ones that did something wrong. I mean, what?
It is absolutely insane. But these are the things that are going under the radar. Now, they just passed a budget, right? So that way they wouldn't have a government shutdown again. This is all the politics. But there's over $1 trillion worth of wasteful spending in it. All these little perks and bonuses that are not being discussed, they're not being debated over on the House floor or the Senate floor. It just went through in the dead of night. This is a fiduciary responsibility of our legislators to actually govern our money properly, manage our money, right? But yet, look what's happening. Because they're so stuck on this impeachment thing, right?
Yeah.
We have a budget that goes through with a deficit that's unreal, adding to our debt, which is over 22 trillion, right? Russia did not collapse because they were invaded by an army. Russia didn't have any debt.
No, they didn't, as a matter of fact.
Right. Russia collapsed because nobody wanted to deal with them anymore, and they collapsed within. I mean, you look at it, you say, what is America headed to? Yes, we control the Federal Reserve. We control the central banking systems. The world is on the U.S. currency, right?
Right.
Oil industry is the main other currency other than U.S. dollars, but it's
Right.
bought and sold through U.S. currency. What in the hell is going on behind our backs when we're so fixated on this stupid charade, this kabuki theater called impeachment, okay, over the fight for political power by two parties that are destroying this country? This is why I love the show, for this reason right here. It's
Right.
like, until we get back to that civil conversation
Right.
of what's best for this nation, not what's best for the Democrat Party or
Right.
what's best for the Republican Party,
That's it.
what's best for this nation, and do the people's work. Do the real critical work. What's really happening with our nation? What's happening with our budget? What's happening with our deficit? What's happening with our debt? What's happening with the world trade? What's happening with our businesses? What's happening with manufacturing? What's happening with production of the critical thing which Rosemary is going to talk about?
Right.
Manufacturing of our medications. Penicillin's not made here. Not one dose of penicillin's made in America. China took it over because they came in, they figured out how to manufacture it. They did the massive manufacturing over there. They flooded the U.S. market, drove the prices down because, hell, they're a communist country. They can do what the hell they want.
Absolutely.
So they drove the prices down. It drove out all the manufacturers in America because they can no longer compete.
Yeah.
So boom, all the manufacturing went over to China. Now China's raising prices up. This is insane, Ted. It's insane. We're watching this, and it's insane.
It is.
You know, and our future 3 shows. So Rosemary Gibson is going to be coming in on January 2nd. We're going to do a mobile, podcast. 42 minutes of it will be with her. We will still open the show up live, have our discussion or monologue,
Right.
and we'll close out the show. But then we're going to go to a tape section of Rosemary. It's something you do not want to miss. She is the leading expert on the healthcare industry. She has several books out there besides China RX that would just boggle your mind of what's going on with our healthcare industry. Because it's not about just Medicaid for all. It's not about universal health care. It's about how the pharmaceutical companies, and there's a lot of great things with the pharmaceutical companies, but it's about how the profit, and this is where the Democrats kind of steal that narrative. It's profit motivated, but it's greed motivated, and it's got to have some checks and balances. And this is where Congress is completely failing on that.
Right, because
completely.
as has been demonstrated, and you touched on it in this book, which is great reading, it's about quality control. See, when a foreign country is making it, the United States, we have no quality control over it, none whatsoever. And so we're subject to whatever they bring to us. And as I indicated just a moment ago, if we take them to task, they can still sue us and force us to pay.
It's quality control
And
and price, and it's actually, believe it or not, it's price control. Price control in America is based on competition.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the free
Yeah,
market.
the free market system, right.
The price control now is who can manufacture it the cheapest outside of America.
Right, yeah.
And that's insane because we don't know what the product is. We know American manufacturers, American workers make the best products, and we have quality control over it here in
Absolutely.
America. But when
Absolutely.
you have unfair competition throughout the world, we lose out.
Yeah,
We have no idea what the quality is. We have no idea. We want cheap stuff,
Yeah,
but that's all we're getting is cheap stuff. We know how that works.
yeah. Welcome to globalization.
You know,
That's
I
what
don't
it's
know
about.
if you ever bought anything at IKEA, but
Oh, yeah.
you might buy
Oh,
it
yeah.
once, and that's never
And
good
that's about
again.
it, yeah.
Right? But on our following shows on January 9th, we're still in negotiations. We have the three top candidates on the Republican side. None of the Democrats have agreed to come on the show. For the 25th Congressional District out in the Antelope Valley and the Santa Clarita Valley and parts of Simi Valley as well, we're going to have Mike Garcia, and we have George Papadopoulos, and we also have Steve Knight. Now we have confirmation from George Papadopoulos. He'll be on the 16th of January. It's going to be a phenomenal show. We'll be able to talk about some of this stuff that's going on that we don't want to do for Christmas. And Steve Knight as well, because he was the former congressman until Katie Hill took the seat from her. Right. We're working on now getting the agreement. Mike wanted to call in. I want him to come in.
Yeah, a live show.
I want
as
to.
opposed
Well,
to
it's
calling.
better presentation for him.
Right.
Now, so don't miss us. We have a great lineup in January. On our last 5 minutes, Ted, I want to reiterate, we're going into Christmas. Christmas to me, because of being a Catholic, a Christian, it is all about the birth of Jesus Christ. It's all about celebrating that tradition for me. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the Jewish community and their celebrations, the African community celebrating their traditions. It's not about competition of whose tradition is better. Christmas is that. It's Christmas. It's Jesus Christ's birthday. We celebrate that. I get upset as a father, as a grandfather. It's not about the gift giving. That's how we celebrate it. We bring family together. We exchange some gifts, and it's a lot of fun. Right. It's a lot of fun with the grandkids and so forth. But that's what Christmas is to me. It is the celebration of Jesus Christ's birth. It's a celebration of family. It's a celebration of sacrifice. It's a celebration of the greatest tradition in my family, of being born into a Catholic family, a Christian family, and celebrating that. And I have a blast with it. What is Christmas to you, Dad?
It's the same thing. I look at the birth of Jesus Christ as a gift from God Almighty. So to me, the exchanging of gifts is symbolic in that sense.
Yes.
Because he gave us him in mortal form, the greatest gift to this world, who ended up dying on a cross at Calvary. So Christmas to me is recognizing the gift that our Lord gave. And by sharing my blessings with my family, by giving to them. I often go to homeless shelters. I go to churches during this time of year, and I feed the homeless. I bring my kids with me because it's about giving back. And I think as a society in general, we seem to have lost sight of that. It's about enjoying each other's company, being thankful for the many blessings, no matter how small they may be, because there are those that are out there that don't have much. They don't. It's about praise. It's about joy. It's about sharing good food, good company, good drink, and just looking around and being thankful for all the blessings that we have to live, as tumultuous as this time may be in our society, to live in a country as great as the United States of America, to be here, to wake up every morning and breathe free air that was given to us by the sacrifice of so many in our armed services. That's what Christmas means to me. It's about giving. It's about sharing. It's about loving. It's about being thankful for the birth of Jesus Christ and for all that came with that. The promise of the life that he gave us, and to live within the shadow of that as best you can.
Those are beautiful words, Ted. I've looked at, Christmas, and it's a celebration of service to others, serving something bigger than yourself. Most people get caught up in serving themselves.
Right, they do.
What are our self-interests? And as we discussed a little bit about, the political arena, serving yourself. And Christmas is about serving something bigger than yourself.
Right.
And that's it, because we come and go.
We do.
I pass on today, tomorrow the sun rises. Who is that guy? I'm not that big and not that important. On that note, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to all of you who do not celebrate Christmas. It's okay. I've been to several celebrations of all kinds. But Merry Christmas to all of you. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for inviting us into your homes. I look forward to seeing you after New Year's Day on January 2nd. Don't forget, we have one heck of a lineup. Ted, bring it on home.
Like Mark, I wanted to wish everybody a joyful holiday season, whether it be Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever it may be. Be safe out there. And for those who are travel during and bringing and celebrating the new year, be careful.
Absolutely.
Be careful, because as we've said, one wrong move cannot ruin just your Christmas, but your family's Christmas And remember, ignorance prevails when rational minds sit back and do nothing. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.